Can you talk a little bit about your plans to scale and how you choose the markets that you do enter? Because you'd mentioned Sierra Leone didn't have the infrastructure necessary for you to enter. So what's the thought process behind that?
Well, it used to be pretty willy-nilly. And I kind of got in trouble with our board because they'd be like, really, you really want to just go into Haiti randomly because they had an earthquake? Like, we understand that you're passionate, but you can't just make decisions that way. So we stopped doing that, and we now have a much more robust process. And in fact, right now what we're focusing on is scaling within our current geographies because there's so much room to grow. Like in India, we calculated that there are 40 million people that we could eventually reach if we just focused on India. And so our scaling challenges are really not so much about conquering new geographies as they are about improving our own business model. And we're now at the stage where we're considering licensing our technology so that other social entrepreneurs can go out and create micro-work centers in different parts of the world without us having to be everywhere.
Are you worried about the fact that, considering how quickly technology will change, that very soon these simple tasks like this won't be relevant, and that that a large company could just do this without the people looking at the cars in the parking lots?
Absolutely. In fact, it's kind of funny that we're teaching computers to do the jobs that our workers are doing now. So that thought has crossed my mind many times. And I think one of the jobs of an entrepreneur and any entrepreneurial company is to stay ahead of that curve, right? To constantly innovate and adapt. If Apple, we were talking about Apple earlier today, if Apple, hadn't forced itself to continually adapt, the company would have gone out of business and certainly not have gone into mobile phones, which were so different from the original product. So every organization, social enterprises included, have to constantly challenge themselves to think beyond the next year or two. So we do that in a few ways. We have longer-term strategic planning. And we also think about our mission more broadly than simply digital work in these particular categories. We think about our mission fundamentally as giving work rather than giving aid or handouts. And if you think about it that broadly, there's a whole world of things that people could do.
So in getting the company to where it is now, what would you say was the biggest mistake you made, and how did you learn from it?
I think the biggest mistake we made was not being bold enough at the beginning. At the beginning, when people kept saying, no, this was a silly idea, there was a part of me that started to internalize it and make our projections. We had smaller projections. We raised less money than we could have in the early days. I think we were less aggressive than we could have been. And it's funny, but so many entrepreneurs I know tell me the same thing. They say, the only mistake I made was maybe not pushing hard enough on my idea early on and accepting some of that doubt. So I'd say that's one thing. In parallel with that, I will say that it's really important to have metrics in place that help you understand whether your early experiments are successful. So we give every employee at Samasource a copy of the Lean Startup book, which some of you might have heard of, which advocates for this iterative approach of throwing stuff at the wall, and if you're going to fail fast and learn from it so that you can move towards success. And many of the early experiments we did didn't end up working. We tried working in a refugee camp. It turned out that was really dangerous, and we couldn't sustain that because Al-Shabaab was kidnapping people in that camp. So we had to move on, right? But we proved that it might work under certain circumstances. And that model, I think, is so important for social entrepreneurs to embrace.